Okay, so what we're dealing with today is we're going to learn about batting, quilt batting, and bias tape, which I call binding. So here's how most of your quilt batting, how you will find it in the store. This is a crib size, which is 45 by 60 inches. This is a twin size, which is, what does that say, 81 by 96. No, it's full size. This will be for a full size bed. And then this is also a full size, but it's extra loft, so it's extra puffy. And so we're going to do a project making a throw at some point, but this stuff is really expensive. This right here says it was from Hobby Lobby, $15. And obviously I couldn't afford to buy that for all 11 girls. So what I do is anytime, I don't even want to pay that if I'm doing my own project. So what I do is if I'm at a thrift store or a yard sale and they have these for $1, $2, $3, I snatch them up and keep them, even if I have nothing planned. Because even for that price, it's worth it to cut it apart for little projects, like what we're doing today. Alright, so that's batting. We're going to learn a little bit about batting, but we're not going to do the throw until next week or even later. Today we're just going to do a bib and a burp cloth. Okay, so we have two pieces. Your pattern says to cut two pieces, and right here's the pattern for the bib, and then you should have one this shape for the burp cloth. And this is actually means somebody left theirs because I actually didn't cut me out a pattern for me to keep. So your burp cloth pattern should look like this, a long rectangle shape, sort of curved in the middle, and it tells you to cut two of fabric. So here's my two pieces I've got cut of my fabric. Now here's something I did on mine that I'm not requiring y'all to do. I've got lace sewed around the edges, and remember the lace is sewed in. Because once we put the other piece on, sew it together, turn it right side out, then the lace is going to be pointing out. So if you want to add lace to yours, this is sew it on first on one side. And so I've got it here on my bib as well. But like I said, I told y'all that you are not required to put lace on yours. You can do yours plain. So here's the bib we did in class. It did have lace, so you're going to have a reversible bib. And then we're going to be putting the little bias tape on it, what I call binding. And then here's the burp cloth we made in class. And we did it plain, no lace. And so this is how yours will be. It will be plain, no lace. Alright, and we put some of that quilt batting in between it. And I actually gave all of the pieces I had to y'all in class for your project. I mean, I didn't want to cut up those big pieces I had there for just these two little things I'm making. Then I wouldn't have enough left to do the throw. So I actually found this in my sewing stuff, and it is actually some type of lining that is puffy. Just very soft and slightly puffy. So this is not true quilt batting, but it'll do for the point of what I'm trying to show y'all. Okay, so when we iron your piece, especially if you sew lace on it, like I have here, sew lace on it, iron it, get it all nice and flat, and then you're going to put your two right sides together. And this actually, sewing the lace around it actually sort of pulled it a little bit, so I can, rather than, if I pull that out, I may pop my seam. So what I'll do is I'll just trim the edges when I pin it together. And then we're going to put our, you'll put your quilt batting on one side. You don't put it between the two good sides. Have your two good sides facing together. You're going to put it on the back or the top, either way. But when you sew it on your sewing machine, I recommend that you sew on top of the fabric, not on top of the batting, because the batting is puffy and it comes apart and it'll catch on your needle and wad up. You don't want it on the side facing up. You want to be sewing on top of your fabric. So let your batting be on the bottom. Okay, now we're going to pin this all together. Here we go. We're going to pin this really good. Probably about 3 for the long side. And then 1 in the middle of each end. Okay, so here I've got it all pinned. And as I said, I've got, because I sewed this lace on here, it tightened it up, sort of gathered it a little bit. So I'm just going to trim the excess that is sticking out. I'm going to trim it off. So I've got it pinned all the way around. I'm just cutting off the back side and the batting that is sticking out. Now I'm going to sew around this all the way around, and then when I get back here I'm going to stop about 3 inches from where I started, and that's going to leave me a hole so I can turn this right side out. Now here's the bib, and I've done the same thing with it. Here's my 2 good pieces of fabric facing each other. I put them together. I put the batting on the back, and then I sewed my seam around, leaving the top open. Okay, so this I've already sewed around, so I'm going to open it. Now remember, you open it between your 2 pieces of fabric, not between your fabric and your batting. So I'm opening it up there. Okay, and this one remember I had lace on it too. So see, now the lace is in the seam and it's sticking out on the sides. Okay, so right here I have a little bit of my batting sticking out, so I'm going to trim it. Okay, so I'm going to go and make a seam across through here and sew this closed. And the reason I'm going to do it is because I need a nice, tight, even edge for me to put this bias tape on. Okay, so I'm going to go sew the seam right here, and then I'm going to sew this all the way around, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I've taken my burp cloth and I've sewed all the way around here, and then about 3 inches where I started, from the part I started and where I ended, then I left me a space. And so I'm going to turn it right side out. Remember, between the 2 pieces of fabric, not between the fabric and the batting. Okay, so I just turn it right side out. Okay, so there we go. We've got it turned right side out. Smooth it down. Get all your corners and edges out. And then where's my opening that we came out of? So we've got our opening right here. So I would just maybe iron this, turn it under, and iron it. Now yours is going to be, unless you can put lace on yours if you want to. I'm just not requiring you to. So if we have a plain one like this, then just ironed out, fold it under, and iron the part where we left it open. And then we're going to top stitch all around the edge of this, just like we've been doing on a lot of our other projects. And when we top stitch it, then it's going to sew this part right here closed. Or you can sew along the edge to seal it off and then top stitch it. And one reason we want to top stitch it is I have had problems with when we make these and put the batting in them, and when people wash them, the batting would wad up, come loose from the edges, and then it just makes it basically worthless. So we're going to top stitch it, and that's going to hold that batting securely in place so that it can be washed. Alright, so here's the bib, and I don't know if you can see or not, but I did a stitch, a seam right along the edge there, and now I'm going to trim the edge of this right beside, as close to my seam as I can get without actually cutting into my seam. I'm going to cut it really smooth and close to my seam there, because we need a very straight, secure edge to put that binding on, because it's alright. So you can see I cut that really close to my seam, so see what a nice tight edge I have now. Okay, so we need approximately 27, 28 inches of this bias tape to make the neck of the bib. Now some bias tape comes pre-folded, and honestly that's the easiest kind to use. This one comes pre-made, but I'm going to have to fold it around the edge of this to sew it on, and that's actually rather difficult, especially for some of you younger girls. So here's what it would look like if it comes pre-folded. See, it's already nice and crisp, and so we're just going to open it up and insert it along the edge of that and sew it on. Now the part, see how you can tell that it is ever so slightly wider on one side than the other? This should be the back side, and the thinner side should be the part that you put on the top in the front, the part you're going to see as you're sewing it on. Because when you're sewing it on, since the back is going to be slightly wider, that's pretty much going to guarantee that the needle is going to catch it. If you put the wider side on the top and sew it on with the thinner part on the back, there's a chance when you're sewing along the edge there that you're not going to catch it in the back. Okay, if you still have your big needle that I told you to put on your sewing machine from when we did the storage case, this is a good time to take it off and change it back to a smaller needle. Because sewing in this binding is going to be small, detailed work, and a big, tough, blunt needle will sort of jerk this more, make it harder for you to do small, detailed work. And then also, you can make the stitching smaller on your machine if you want to at this point, but you don't have to. Okay, I'm going to use, so sort of, you've got your 27, 28 inches, fold it in half, and then the middle point obviously is going to be the middle of the bib, so that there's the equal amount of tie on either side. And then we're going to, since mine does not come pre-folded, I'm going to have to look at mine, and I can see that this side is slightly wider than this side. So this is the part I'm going to fold on the back, and this is the part I'm going to fold on the front. And when you pin it on, a lot of times they say to pin it with the needles. Let me see if I can do one here. Get the middle. Get started in the middle. Fold it over as tight there to the edge of my bib as I can. And then I'm going to pin it in with my pin being what I would call across the tape. See, sort of like that, how I've pinned it on. So I've got to get that all pinned on there securely, and then I'm going to start on one end and fold it over and top stitch. Folding that closed, and of course when I get here, then I'm top stitching it onto the bib. And it's going to look like this. Don't know if you can see or not. But see how I've stitched close to the edge of the binding? And see on the back it was slightly wider, so it definitely caught the back when I stitched through. And I just top stitched all the way to the end. And then I top stitched along the edge of the bib to hold that batting in place. Plus, I just think it gives it a nice finished look. And we top stitch this as well around the edge. And that's all it is. And you're done.